Welcome to Connect, the podcast of the California MBA, where strategy, innovation, and leadership come together to shape the future of mortgage finance. This is where voices and ideas driving our industry forward meet real world execution. I'm Paul Gigliotti, CEO of the California MBA. And if you're here, it's because you care about building better for your business, your clients, and the housing industry as a whole. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our 2026 President Council sponsors. These are the companies that make all of this possible, all of our advocacy and everything the California MBA does. AmeriHome, Consolidated Analytics, Loan DNA, Funding Shield, CMG, Guild Mortgage, Rocket Mortgage, Wiener Brodsky Kidder, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all for your continued support and dedication. Now let's get on to our episode today. I am really excited to introduce Melissa, Head of Compliance at ActiveComply. Melissa, thank you for coming.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
ActiveComply is a company helping lenders navigate what I feel is one of the most complex and ever evolving areas in our industry, compliance with creativity and marketing. And how do you do it all in one platform? We're going to find out all about that today. ActiveComply has been a leader in marketing and communication compliance. And now with the introduction of TrustFrame, which I can't wait to hear more about, they're bringing AI into the conversation in a very real practical way. Melissa, thank you so much for coming to Connect.
Thanks for having me on. A lot of really exciting things to go over today. AI is certainly a buzzword. You don't often see it paired with compliance, so that'll be something to certainly dive into today for sure.
Absolutely. And I hope what we kind of get through is I know we're going to see a lot of Active Compliant Mortgage Innovators Conference that's coming up. You guys will be up on stage a couple of times, but when you say marketing in our industry, everybody's heads kind of go multiple ways, right? Because we're talking about marketing to the consumer. We're talking about marketing internally. We're talking about marketing like more on a B2B level as well. So there is a huge amount of ground to cover. It's no wonder why you guys are diving into an AI solution. So with that, are you ready to dive in? I've got a book full of questions for you, my dear. A
I look
book.
forward to it. Let's dive.
All right, so let's start with the big picture. Compliance, especially in marketing and communication, has always been critical. Everybody's looking at it. You have every regulatory agency. That's the first thing mortgage lenders get called out on or complaints is the marketing that goes out. And it's so critical. And it's also, a lot of the times it's been a bottleneck. I was the COO of Pinnacle Home Loans, and for our production team, marketing was such a bottleneck and such a headache for everyone. From your perspective, how has that landscape evolved over the past few years? And where are lenders feeling most of the pressure today, do you think?
You said it was a bottleneck some time ago. And I feel like that bottleneck has been even more exacerbated because of AI. There are all these really great AI tools available to those end licensees to feel empowered to create their own content. How many times have I seen a licensee feel really confident in Canva, make their own branding, their own logo, putting it out there before maybe it has any compliance eyes on it, right? So it's really accessible. It's helping them make some of those bobblehead art items that you see
Right.
streaming through your LinkedIn. So it's so accessible. And with that accessibility comes a tremendous amount of risk because there's so much more content to review. But you're wanting to enable your licensees to have that creative bug. It's one of the ways that you attract talent from an HR perspective.
Mhm,
It's just how do you close that gap between the marketing flexibility and the compliance requirements. And so if you're going to meet some of those demands, you have to bring AI to the compliance table. Compliance has to be a champion of AI as well and work hand in hand with that marketing team partner to achieve that. And so that's what we've tried to do with TrustFrame as an example.
All right, well, let's dive into that. TrustFrame plus AI, maybe? You've introduced TrustFrame as an AI driven solution focused on marketing compliance. Help us understand what that means in practice. How does TrustFrame change the way lenders review and approve marketing content? What does TrustFrame do? Lay it out for us.
The idea with TrustFrame is that you're wanting to build that rapport and that trust with your end user licensee who's trying to make that content and get it out there, getting that compliance stamp of approval. You want your compliance team to have a whole lot of trust in this automated compliance system so they're not having ulcers back home when it comes to the content review. But
Right.
so at the most simple level, TrustFrame is an AI compliance assistant driven tool that allows licensees to upload content like multi page PDFs, JPEGs, PNG files, things that they're creating in Canva or they're making via a PDF creator tool, maybe within the CRM, and upload it for an automated compliance check and review. So, what's happening in that instance is they're getting a rendering of a decision within 30 to 90 seconds. Now, that's quite the turn time in comparison to what a lot of lenders would tell you is maybe 24 to 48 hours. Depending on their volume that they're seeing, depending on staffing
Mhm.
considerations. Sometimes those SLAs are met, sometimes they're not. One of the benefits of TrustFrame is not only that really fast turn time, but it's also working on nights. It's working on weekends. It's working on holidays.
Oh my God.
As a former compliance person working at a institution, I know that I got quite a few marketing pieces suddenly at 5 p.m. on a Friday before the open house was the next day. And
Yes, I was about to say open house weekends. Like how many? Yeah. Yep. Nice.
so co-marketing would be covered by this from a RESPA perspective, looking for some of that equal tangibility when it comes to the space on the advertisement. A lot of it is highly customizable based on the lender partner feedback, depending on risk tolerance, institution type, things of that nature. So we come with some base rules, we make some recommendations, but then we really mold it to the lender's policy as part of the onboarding process.
That's brilliant. And so it's all types of marketing, right? And I would make an assumption, and I hope I'm correct in this assumption, but the solution is actually looking potentially state by state for a multi state lender. So if you're doing an open house in Florida, what can be on the flyer or the social media? And then the very same company, lender company, is doing an open house in California. Is that a good assumption?
I love that assumption. Right now, the product launched this past December, and we knew as part of that MVP, it had to have state by state included within it. And so, what we do is we incorporate NMLS consumer access data. We incorporate who the licensees are for a particular institution. We know where they're licensed, where they're not. We're having rules trigger based on which licensee is part of that particular marketing piece. And those auto apply. So, this is a mobile friendly app that's a web app. They don't have to create login credentials to access it. They just drop in their corporate email. We have built this with loan officers in mind because we know that they're mobile. We know how they interact with these items. How can we streamline this process? Because so much of it being a success is the loan officer buy in piece. And so that's been a tremendous focus for us at ActiveComply.
That's amazing. That sounds like a brilliant tool. I am so excited to hear more of it at MIC 26th in May. This is going to be
I
fantastic.
bought a new suit. I'm all ready to talk about it at length there.
All right, we're going to go fashion head to head then. I
Oh,
love
I,
clothing. I'm
I,
going to go
I,
shopping now. Let's talk about the business aspect. So we talk a lot about innovation, but at the end of the day, lenders are very focused on the outcome. They're extremely focused on ROI, implementation, quick now, need it now, self-serve. They want everything the consumer wants, right? And so it's up to the brilliant people at Active Comply to be able to provide all of this. What does this actually do for the lender's business, whether that's speed to market, risk reduction, or even revenue opportunity?
I don't think that you can have a conversation like this without having some numerical values to back it, right? I look at a blog post or some sort of announcement, and if I scan it really quickly and there's not a numerical value in there, I walk away because I'm like, what is validating some of these assumptions? I have a lot of criticality to that. So, what I would say is we recently did a live case study webinar
Oh,
with one of our really
nice.
great partners, Atlantic Bay, who helped us design and build out the tool. They were a really big fundamental part of us launching this tool along with some other lender partners. It's one thing for a provider like ActiveComply to say, hey, we think we have a problem we can solve. We're going to build it in a silo. But so much of it being a success is going to be based on that design partner feedback. So they were really interwoven into how we built this first version of the product. Now, as part of that case study evaluation, we talked about some numerical values that came out for that particular customer. So they had that 30 to 90-second review time. We met that SLA as anticipated, usually below the 90 seconds, like we were hoping. We also had 100% exam marketing samples validated. So we felt really good about that, getting that feedback from the customer. We had some slight tweaks along the way when it came to some of the rule engine setup, some of the things that they hadn't thought about in the very beginning. We even helped them
Like
start to
for
close some of these gaps.
give us an example of that. I want to get a little granular with this. This is a great conversation.
So what I would say is, and this is not uncommon for a lot of lender partners, where you might see from compliance person to compliance person some variability in some
Right.
of the outputs. I mean, what I think is a deceptive practice, so you'd have concern, might look different to you, Paul, might look different to your regulator, depending on what they have for breakfast that day, maybe. So there's a lot of variability. And so, with that in mind, you were able to take this AI compliance assistant and have some uniformity to some of those rule sets and that application and interpretation of certain risk. At times, we saw that there were maybe distinctions with how disclosures were being required for certain loan products. So, we're able
Okay.
to kind of have that uniformity apply for that disclosure. We also know, as part of the TrustFrame product offering, there's an AI compliance assistant chatbot where a submitter user can interact with that chatbot and learn about a regulation. What is UDAP? What do I need to be worried about? It helps them rewrite some of the content. Maybe I want to say I have the lowest rates. How can I reframe that in a way that really mitigates that compliance risk?
Wow, that's great. Great examples. It's interesting. You said something, Melissa, and I remember um, going back to when I worked at a lender as COO of Pinnacle Home Loans, and we were constantly looking up or reaching out to who our external compliance provider was, Rosalind Hardy at QCP. Shameless plug, love them. But I remember her coming back and saying, a handful of times, well, it's up to interpretation. How many laws out there for mortgage lending, specifically as it comes to compliance, and even more specifically, compliance related to marketing, it's up to interpretation. And so, as a leader in the organization, or even branch managers or whatnot, we'd often sit back and scratch our heads and say, "Well, so we can interpret this any way we like. What does that mean?" So, it sounds like with this AI tool, it helps you almost give guardrails. And I do know from regulators that, if you're trying, for better lack of terminology, if you're doing an A for effort and they see something incorrectly, the results of their findings are going to be a lot less severe if they see that, they've got your solution from ActiveComply embedded in their workflow, because you are trying, and because there is room for interpretation.
So much of the regulations that apply in our space today were written 50 years ago. Right? So much of a compliance officer's job is taking these regulations that are maybe less prescriptive, a little bit more gray area, and having them conform to some of the marketing mediums today that weren't accounted for in some of
Yeah.
those regulation texts. Some of the states are getting a little bit more granular, a little bit more prescriptive with that guidance as well. So those regulations are evolving. Um, Compliance person to compliance person, you're going to see that risk tolerance level really differ. And being on the vendor side, it's been a really wonderful experience to see that drastic difference in scale, institution types, sizes, and how different they interpret these things. So we knew that if we were to create a product, we had to have it built in a way that accommodated those differences really easily for those different lenders and their interpretations. Whenever I'm talking to a compliance personnel member about risk tolerance, my advice is always to speak to your C suite you are supposed to be an extension of that risk tolerance. You want to show them
Yes.
where maybe guide rails should be, but you definitely want their backing when you need to put your foot down on something. Because if you don't have that, you're going to have those branch managers shaking their head saying, like, I could interpret this anyway. I would say, yeah, absolutely. If you had a really expensive legal team, you could do anything, if you just invest in the right places. So I think part of the conversation around AI has to be, is this a risky thing for a compliance team member to start to incorporate? With that case study, we had on average 4 hours were saved per marketing piece review because there is quite a bit of back and forth and resubmission and delay for that licensee going back and forth with those edits. So we were able to expedite that and have edits in real time get uploaded and get rescanned, and there was no delay. So that's a clear business use case. Now, for a compliance team member to take that to their executive team and say, here are really clear opportunities for the business from an ROI perspective. Your executive team's going to see it. They're going to be really excited. The other half of that coin is, how are you talking about that risk with your regulator? And to your point, Paul, it's all about that compliance narrative. Your regulator wants to see, hey, we have this new AI tool. AI may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Here's what we did to make sure it was mitigating consumer risk. And we're retesting and we feel really comfortable with it. So there's certainly a path for compliance to be the champion of AI.
Yeah, there absolutely is. You know what I love about TrustFrame? I'm sitting here again from your customer's perspective, the lender's perspective. It seems that TrustFrame becomes more than compliance, it actually becomes a growth enabler. Because if you have a solution like ActiveComply at your fingertips for your production team, and a lender has the ability to boast, I mean, think of what you just said in any given state, an originator gets notification that they have an opportunity to do an open house on Saturday. And within a couple of hours, they could have flyers created, social graphics created, sign up sheets created to, capture who's coming into the open house. I mean, that's a game changer. And so for these lenders, it becomes, I'm going to become a poster child for Active Comply. For lenders, it becomes dual purpose, right? Because not only do they get to use a solution like that as a great tool to really market to production, but then obviously it's going to help the production staff when they're out in the field being able to use the solution. So fantastic. I cannot wait to hear more about it.
Some of the other tips, because I love exactly what you said. That's how I've been thinking about it, is that we want to be a sales enablement partner. Compliance is so often thought of as like the department of no. And sometimes that's warranted, not always. How can we be the department of yes? How can we expand some of that talent pool? How can we make some more allowances for some of that creativity from our end user licensees? And I think what I've heard from a lot of the lenders and compliance officers who are engaged with TrustFrame today is they were able to take that into their executive board and be the superstars of that board meeting and really win some of those points of trust with their board, saying like, hey, here's an idea I have. Here's where we want to lead the charge with AI. You didn't expect it from compliance, but aren't you really excited to see it and what it can do for the business as a whole?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Kudos to you guys. You've been around for a while and you've got a strong name. And I think this solution is really going to skyrocket what you have the ability to do. Have you seen any one type of institution that lends mortgages gravitate more towards the solution than not? So retail lenders, INBs, credit unions, have you noticed one or the other out of curiosity?
No, great question. I would say that maybe the highest and best use case applicability is certainly retail IMBs, specifically those that maybe are a little bit more Wild West when it comes to the branding and personalized content, right? So here's a
Got it.
way for them to get a hand on it. That would be institutions that have a large amount of DBAs, trade names,
Uh,
fictitious names, lenders that have a large amount of JVs that they're managing, from a consolidated standpoint. Those are really difficult to tackle. You have to make certain accommodations. So those lenders are where we really thought we'd see a really strong link and connection from a value standpoint. And we certainly have seen that. What we were a little bit surprised to see is that we're also seeing that from more of our depository institutions as well. Now,
Oh,
depositories historically have been a little bit more closed minded, maybe about some of the marketing initiatives. Many depositories I know maybe don't allow for social media use for their loan officers, as an example, or the mortgage bankers. We're seeing that shift start to happen where those staff members are continually asking for some level of permission, but the depositories aren't structured in a way to accommodate that. And it's really new territory for them. There's a level of being uncomfortable. TrustFrame is now a way for them to say, I can put some hard stops in place where they can't get auto approval, but I can use it at the very base level as a document repository for examinations. I can use it for a once over to really expedite my review process. I can use it as a ticketing system. So even if an institution like a depository feels a little bit uncomfortable with implementing auto approval through AI, we help meet them where they are from that AI comfortability, and then they can build up to their where their IMB partners might be today.
that's awesome. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I would think the same as you, and I'm surprised that FDIC insured. Not surprised. I'm happily surprised, I should say, that FDIC insured banks are looking at this solution because they are very slow to pull the trigger. Um, and
And I'll say that
so
vendor management is still slow, so at least that's consistent for years to come, maybe. So we'll see.
you and I will find a corner at MIC over a cocktail and talk about getting approved as a vendor with FDIC insured banking
Always
institute.
fun, always a
Eh,
fun experience for sure.
I went through the process, and I think my response to one of them was, it took me less time to adopt our first child.
Oh my god.
Isn't that crazy?
Do you have any
Um,
feedback for our process? Well,
yeah,
just like
exactly.
that.
Here's your feedback.
Right.
Melissa, this has been such a delightful conversation. It's been great knowing, getting to know you a little bit better and diving into the new solutions at Active Comply. As I said in the past, or I've said before, I'm a fan of the organization, and it's great to see this new product come about. Thank you for your insight and this conversation. To our audience, thank you for tuning in to Connect. Innovation is accelerating, it's changing. That's what innovation means, continuously changing. Regulation is not slowing down. We know that at the California MBA. That's the foundation of our association. And how we navigate both will define the next chapter in our industry. Until next time, stay engaged, stay sharp, and keep building with purpose. Thank you very much.